Hi guys, we are looking at our homework for Chapter 16, Monetary Policy and Bank Regulation. Excuse me. But before we get to the homework, I wanted to show you a couple things because I want to make sure that you look at the Khan Academy video link for this week and all the weeks, but especially this week I wanted to point out that if you go to the Khan Academy videos and click on Chapter 16, you'll see several here, and you really need to look at all of these very carefully. And I also wanted to show you the last link down here is actually a website. I'm going to open that up to Investopedia that explains the bond prices, and especially it explains right down here, if you scroll down, it explains the relationship between, as soon as all these pop-ups get out of the way, it explains very well right through here the relationship between the bond prices and interest rates. There's an inverse relationship, and it explains why. So it's important to read this. I'm sure that this is also talked about in Khan videos, but it's certainly right here. So make sure you read this. It's going to help you answer at least one of the questions on your quiz, one of your AP type questions that you're going to need to know the answer to. So make sure you look at this website, okay? And that is in the link to that link is in the list of Khan Academy videos for Chapter 16. Okay, let's get to our homework right here, which is not too hard. We're looking at a spreadsheet for a private bank, and I'm going to jump over to my smartboard. So we're looking at one of many banks in an economy, and we can see that this is their T table, I guess here. This is their balance sheet. And what is happening here is there's an open market operation when the central bank, or in the case of the United States, we call it the Federal Reserve Bank, purchases $10 million in bonds from Acme Bank. Now think about that. Which way is the money flowing if the central bank is doing the purchasing? Well, the money is flowing from the Federal Reserve Bank to Acme Bank. So Acme Bank is going to gain $10 million in cash by selling $10 million worth of their bonds to the central bank. So how will this action change this balance sheet? Well, think about that. It's going to cause their dollar amount of bonds to go down by 10 million, and if they're going to not hold any of the money that they gain in excess reserves, then it's going to enable them to loan out $10 million more in loans. So their spreadsheet, or their balance sheet, I should say, should look like this. It's going to be, their assets are going to be 80 million in loans, 10 million still in reserves. Their bonds are going to go down to 20 million, and their liabilities are going to remain at 100 million in deposits. So, next question. Explain whether the money supply in the economy will rise or fall. Well, it's going to rise if you think about that, because they're going to be loaning out more money into the economy. So you can write your answer something like this. since they're not going to hold any additional reserves, they're going to lend out the total of the additional $10 million. And so its loans are going up to a total of $80 million, and this is going to flow into the overall economy and the money supply because of the money multiplier that we learned about in chapter 15. The money supply is going to increase. Okay. Number three, does the open market operation change the net worth of Acme? No, because it just redistributed the assets. You still have $10 million more in assets than they have in liabilities. And if we look back at our answer, we can see that 80 plus 10 plus 20 is 110. So they have 110 million in assets, and they have 100 million in liabilities, and that was true at the beginning right here as well. So that hasn't changed. Okay, now we're going to return to the balance sheet of Acme Bank after the open market operation, which is going to look like this right here. Okay, so we're looking at that balance sheet after the open market operation. Do something real quick. Go back. Whoa! No, don't do that. I was just trying to fix that if I could. There we go. Okay. So, does the open market operation change the net? Well, we've already done that. Sorry. Suppose that the central bank now increases its reserve requirement to 15%. And furthermore, suppose that the bank does not wish to reduce its holding in bonds. So it's got 20 million in bonds now, right? And so that's going to stay the same, okay, right here. But they're going to have to increase their reserves to meet that 15% requirement to 15 million, and that's going to have to come out of the money that they're going to loan. And that, I believe, is going to, our next question is, does that increase or decrease the money supply? And that should be pretty obvious. If they're not able to loan out as much money into the economy, if it drops from 80 million, let's jump back over here, if it drops from 80 million here to 75, then that is going to reduce the money supply in the economy. Okay. And you can read the whole answer here, and you can, of course, I would like you guys to put this in your own words, but the overarching idea here, or the big idea here, is that when there's less money to be loaned out into the economy, then the overall money supply is going to drop. Okay, question number 6. Where are we here? Okay. Does the change in the reserve requirement alter the net worth of the bank? Well, you should know, no, it does not, because it's simply, once again, we've just altered the distribution of assets. We haven't changed the total, okay, because if we jump back over here, the total here is still 75 plus 15 plus 20 is still 110. 110 million in assets and 100 million in liability, so the net worth is still 10 million. That has not changed. Let's see, where are we? Does this change? Nope. Okay, one more time. We're going to return back to the balance sheet after the open market operation, and we're going to assume that the government's reserve requirement drops down to 8%, but Acme Bank is choosing to hold excess reserves up to 10 million because the bank wants a margin of safety to make sure it will not unexpectedly fall short of having enough reserves, and thus need to borrow to meet its requirements. Suppose on top of all that the central bank increases the discount rate. Okay, so how is Acme Bank going to react now in terms of its balance sheet? Now, if you think this through, if if Acme Bank were to fall short and need to borrow money from the central bank, they are now going to have to pay a higher discount rate to do so. So they don't want that to happen. So they're going to make sure that they have enough in reserves so they do not have to end up borrowing money to make up the shortfall. So what do? Okay, well, we can say that they do this. Let's jump back down here. Where are we here? So if Acme Bank wants a margin of safety, so that is, will be sure to have enough reserve. Okay, so if they fall short, the discount rate is the rate that they would have to that the central bank would charge to borrow the difference. So the higher discount rate means that Acme will want a greater margin of safety. So I'm just kind of repeating what I've already said, right? So Acme will react to the higher discount rate by holding some higher level of reserves, and we're just going to call that X dollars. We don't know exactly what it is, but something higher than they have, and then holding a lower proportion of loans or bonds, okay, or bonds. But here we're just going to say loans, and you can also do it with bonds. So your answer could be something like that. They're going to hold. They're going to hold 80 million in loans minus some X amount fewer in loans. They're going to keep their 10 million in reserves plus some X amount, whatever they hold fewer in loans here, this dollar amount X, they're going to add to their reserves. Okay? And we're assuming that their bonds are not going to change, but that's just, that could, but let's just, for the sake of this problem, let's just assume that they're going to maintain their 20 million in bonds, and their deposits don't change at all. So if they hold more in reserves and make fewer loans, then the money supply will obviously go down, right? So that actually answers number 8, which is pretty obvious, right? Yeah. And then does the higher discount rate alter the net worth of the bank? Once again, no, because you're simply redistributing your assets here. Let's scroll back down. So no matter what this value X, you're subtracting the same value from your loans as you're adding to your reserves. So you're simply redistributing your assets so that your total assets are still going to equal 110 million, and your total liabilities are still going to equal 100 million. So your net worth remains at 10 million. And that is your homework. Now that's easy, and you won't have any problem doing that at all, but your quiz is going to be kind of hard. So make sure that you read your chapter carefully and look at all of these videos, not only for chapter 16, but it wouldn't hurt you at all to go back. Let me just jump back and look at your videos for chapter 15 as well, because they're all part of the same unit. Okay, let's just look at this. Let's see. So these for chapter 15 right here, and then the ones for chapter 16. And make sure you look at the website. Let me jump back to that. Make sure that you look at this website right down here. Not down there, but down here. Right here. Bond Basics, which looks like this. Okay? All right.